folks, so today I'm going to show you how to make some mealworm chocolate bark. So we're starting with some Whittaker's 62% dark cocoa, some ginger or crystallized ginger, and then obviously our mealworms. So these at the moment are uncooked, so the first job that I need to do in order to get them ready is I need to bake them. So what we're going to do is I've got my baking tray ready to go. We're going to put some tin foil down, and then we're just going to lightly roast them in the oven for, well, these ended up only taking me about half an hour. So my oven is set to 200 degrees Celsius on fan bake. They actually didn't take as long as I thought they were going to. So normally when I cook them I do a much bigger quantity, which takes a little bit longer, but these guys cooked up really quick. So within about half an hour they were ready to roll. So all we're going to do is just put some aluminium down, basically to just stop them from sticking to the pan, and then we are going to spread them out in a nice thin layer in the middle of the sheet, and then, yeah, as I said, they go into the oven, so 200 degrees Celsius, fan bake, and you're basically cooking them until they look like a light golden brown, and that they're crispy. So that's kind of what you're aiming for with your mealworms. While the mealworms are taking their time to cook, we can sort of prepare the other ingredients. I wouldn't probably prepare your chocolate until right before you're about to put it all together, because you don't want it to harden before your mealworms are ready. But just before they're ready, you can start to melt your chocolate. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen anyone open chocolate quite as awkwardly as this, so you're in for a treat, you're welcome. With our chocolate, what we want to do is we want to melt it down so that we can spread it out and add our toppings and that they'll stick. So there are two ways you can do this. You can obviously do this with a double boiler over the elements, but the easiest and quickest way I find is by putting it into the microwave. So what I'm going to do here is just separate each of the squares of the chocolate out so that they melt a little bit more evenly. And then I'm going to pop them into my microwave for 30-second intervals. Basically, you don't want to go any longer than 30 seconds because everything then starts to get really hot. And if you overcook your chocolate when you're melting it, it doesn't turn out very good. So basically what you want to do is do 30 seconds in the microwave, take it out, give it a wee stir, have a look at how things are going, and then pop it back in for another 30 seconds. I think all up, I ended up putting mine in for about 1.5 minutes. And you don't want to put it in the microwave until it's fully melted. I would aim for like 90% of your chocolate has melted. And you'll sort of see what that looks like in a minute when I bring this back out. So all our chocolate broken up, looking good, into the microwave, 30 seconds and stir. And then after 1.5 minutes, this is what it looked like. So as you can see, there's still some partially unmelted chocolate in there, but about 90% of that chocolate is looking pretty melted, and that's pretty good to me. So just sort of stir it through so that those last little bits work their magic. And then what we're going to do is we're going to prepare the other ingredient, which today I opted for a crystallized ginger. I probably wouldn't go crystallized ginger again. It was quite a strong flavour and possibly a little bit overpowering. I did still taste the mealworms, and you know, it was still enjoyable. My family and friends were pleasantly surprised by my mealworm chocolate. However, it was a very strong flavour, and that could have been due to the fact that when I chopped it, as you'll see, I didn't chop it super small, but ginger, as I'm sure you all know, is quite a strong flavour on its own anyway. So perhaps opt for something a little bit less full on, maybe. And that's the great thing about this chocolate bark, is that you can pretty much do any combination of chocolate and any combination of toppings that you like. So things that work really well, obviously, are your, bugs work great, but things like dried fruits and nuts and seeds, they go really nicely, and usually what I'd try and do is combine a fruit and a nut. So because the mealworms have a very nutty flavour, they in this case were my nuts, and then I opted for ginger as my fruit. Some other combinations that I'm looking forward to trying will be, I've got some dried goji berries in my pantry that I'd like to have a whirl with. I also have some cranberries and coconut I'd like to try, dried raspberries with pumpkin seeds and mealworms, and then I also made a rocky road recently for a student at school. So I used just marshmallows and some almonds. But what I'd do this time round is I would make sure that instead of using the almonds for my nut, I'd probably use a mealworm. So that would be my next, I guess, ingredient selection of choice. But you can pretty much combine anything. So if there's a fruit that you really like dried fruits work better. But yeah, if there's dried fruit that you like and a nut combination that you like, you can go for your life. So what we're going to do now is just put some of these bits of ginger into the chocolate mix, just to kind of help combine the flavours and make it sort of a little bit more cohesive. And if I'd have been using more mealworms, then I would have put some mealworms within the chocolate as well, but they were a little bit scarce at the time. I just wanted to do a wee bit of a taste tester, so I didn't use too many. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spread this chocolate out and prep it ready for its toppings. So what I've got here is a different, obviously just a different tray, and I've lined it with some baking parchment. You'll have to excuse the clothes pegs, but I find that they are the best way to get sheets to stick to the tape or stick to the tray when you're trying to spread stuff like chocolate, because it just, otherwise the paper moves and it drives me insane. So that's another helpful tip from me. So just scraping out all that chocolate, and obviously you want to get every last bit because no one wants to waste chocolate. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to sort of try and spread it as evenly as we can across the tray. So the thing to remember is as well, I don't do anything particularly well measured. So as I said, you know, a handful of mealworms, a handful of ginger. I don't really know how much exactly I use, but anyway, so yeah, measuring's not my strong suit. So basically when you're spreading your chocolate, again, I don't really have a particularly accurate measure for how thick it should be. I guess aim somewhere between maybe, I don't know, 3 and 5 mils thick. 5 mils is quite thick though. And I think the thing that you forget is dark chocolate's quite rich. So the thinner the better really, because, you know, when you go to cut these up into your little portions, it can be a lot of chocolate, you know. So you want to sort of save this for, yeah, spread it out as thin as you can, and then that way it also means that it hardens a little bit quicker as well if it's not too thick, which is good. So, you know, I mean, if Valentine's Day is only 3 weeks away, it might be worth, you know, having a go at making some chocolate bark for your loved one, show them your appreciation. I'm not a big fan of the corporate Valentines, but a nice little handmade gift like this is quite sweet. You don't have to use mealworms, but if your Valentine is particularly adventurous, give it a go. Yeah, as I say, my family and friends were, yeah, pleasantly surprised, I think, by my bug creation. So that's pretty good. So anyway, so now what we're going to do is, now our chocolate's ready for the toppings. So we're just going to try and evenly spread this ginger around. The ginger being quite heavy made really good contact with the chocolate, which meant that when it got cut, as you'll see shortly, when it gets cut, the ginger was well cemented into the chocolate. The mealworms, however, because they're so light, and if you're using other light ingredients, you want to make sure that they do get real good purchase on there, because otherwise what happens is when you chop them or when you move them around and transport your chocolate from place to place, it might be that you end up with a lot of it falling off. So you just need to be aware of that as well. So now that our mealworms have cooked in the oven, and as you can see are nice and light and toasted, we're going to add them as well. So they are just going to also get sprinkled on the top of our chocolate bark. So you can sort of see that I possibly over toasted quite a few of mine. As I say, they didn't take as long as I thought they were going to based on other options of cooking. So that one was really well done. So that one didn't make the cut, but yeah, so, you know, just keep an eye on them when you're roasting them. It sort of depends on the strength of your oven, I guess, and as long as they're dry and crispy, they are cooked. So okay, so our chocolate bark has now set. There are a couple of ways that you can do that, but you need to sort of think about the pros and cons of both. So what I did was I actually left mine just in the pantry to cool sort of air temperature. Problem was it was like a 30-something degree day when I did this. So yeah, as you'll see once I look like I'm cutting it like a maniac onto metal, don't ask. Anyway, what you'll notice is that mine wasn't super firm when I cut it, so it was still quite pliable. The other option you've got is you can put it in the refrigerator. The problem with putting it in the fridge is that often what will happen is you'll get condensation form on top of your chocolate, which doesn't affect the chocolate, but it just doesn't look as nice when you've got little water droplets on there. But so something to consider, I guess. As you can see, I was talking before about how you need to make sure your mealworms get really good purchase with that chocolate. So you can see that quite a few of mine were very, very loosely sitting on the top there. So you chop it into little sections. These were probably a little bit big for a portion. And as you can see, yeah, it's still quite pliable. But yeah, that's your chocolate bark. And so it makes a great little gift. Only takes, it doesn't take very long to make. So yeah, enjoy.